Welcome everybody, this is How to English, Teach and Learn with Gav and Em.
It's a podcast about teaching and learning English as a foreign language.
All opinions stated are personal and references will be given when necessary. Welcome back Em, and welcome to all of the followers to Gav and Em's How to English, Teach and Learn with Gav and Em. Did I say Gav and Em?
You said it a few times.
I don't want them to forget who we are, Em.
Welcome, everyone.
Welcome.
I am Em.
And I am Gav. And today's episode, Em, is episode 8, Accents. What does accents mean to you, Em? I'm not asking for a dictionary definition. What does an accent mean to you?
Oh, I think it's the...
Is it the characteristic of the way that you speak? Maybe some of the stresses, some of the intonation, maybe the rhythm of the way you communicate?
That sounds an awful lot like a dictionary definition.
It was from my head, honestly.
Okay, yeah, definitely that is what it is. It's all those little subtleties. You can't always explain them, but you can just recognise it when you hear it, that it's something that distinguishes where that person is from, usually.
That was my next point. It could be connected to your background, maybe where you're from, maybe the influences you had as you were growing up and developing the way that you speak. Could be connected to your family, friends.
And if you've learned English, it could be from a teacher, from a series or music or any of the influences that you get from your learning experience. If you've spent time in another country, maybe for a while, and you've learned English there and you've picked up the accent, maybe you've got a mixed accent where you've picked up bits from different countries. So I see it as, if you want to know my feelings about an accent, I feel like it's a rich tapestry of experiences, and it's a kind of smorgasbord, Gav, maybe.
Smorgasbord, is that like a buffet?
Yeah, like bits of things all contributing to a lovely, delicious plate.
A plate of your voice.
Yeah. Hadn't really thought this one through, but
That's a beautiful picture.
it is. Yes.
And it's unique. We all have different accents. There's no one official English accent, for example. As you know, Em, in the UK, there are many different accents. In the US, there are many. In Australia, in India, New Zealand, Canada, and all of those many other places where English is the first language, there are so many different accents.
Absolutely, Gav. Absolutely. So what would somebody mean, Gav, if they said you've got an English accent because you speak English?
Well, there are accents from regions of England.
Yes.
Therefore, you might have an accent that reflects these areas.
Yes. But that doesn't mean the language of English has the same accent. As we know, English as a language and English as a nationality are two different things. Maybe we don't need to clarify this, but I just wonder if my students say I want an English accent, what do they actually mean? Do they mean they want an accent like someone from England, or they just want to sound like they speak English well?
That's a good question. But I think students distinguish between, for example, American English and British English accents.
True. Yes, they do. So you have to really ask more questions, I think, if a student says they want to speak or they want to have an English accent.
Maybe our students saw a TV programme from the UK and they heard a particular accent in one of those shows and thought to themselves, I want to sound like that.
Possible. Depends on the student, of course, because some of my students, when I play them recordings from English speakers, They sometimes have English accent, sometimes American, and I ask my students can actually tell the difference, and some of them can and some of them can't. So it is worth having this conversation about accents at some point with your students. Or is it, Gav? Because maybe it's not important. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think it's interesting. It's a very complicated topic, and I think it may go into stereotyping, where on TV we see a lot of stereotypes being portrayed as this is a typical British person or this is a typical American person, and we don't see the diversity and the variety of people and accents who come from English speaking countries. It is very complicated, Em. So today we are privileged to have a special guest who is Bianca from Unpuzzled English. You can find her on Instagram and on Facebook, where she does workshops and has live presentations on the topic that we are focused on today, Em.
Perfect.
So this time, Em, is going to be slightly different. Rather than listening to Bianca's contribution in one go, we can break it down into parts and discuss each of the key points that Bianca makes.
I like it. So we can focus on each part individually and really discuss it in depth.
That's right. Here we go.
Hey Gav and Em, this is Bianca from Unpuzzled English. Thanks for having me, and thanks everyone who is listening right now. It's a pleasure to be here, especially to talk about something that I really enjoy and that I think it's really important to talk about, which are English accents. So, I am a Brazilian English teacher and I've been studying English accents for about 1 year and a half. And I decided to do that because I see many learners frustrated because they want to sound like a native speaker and they cannot. They believe fluency is the same as speaking or sounding like a native speaker. And they believe that because we can see many advertisements of teachers or courses promising that they will teach you to speak like a native speaker. But every time I see those kinds of advertisements, I think, well, which native are you talking about? Because we have to remember that there are more than 40 countries around the world where English is the official language. And in each country, people speak in a different way because each country has a different culture, a different history, so they have a different accent. Just around UK, there are around 35 or 40 accents. So native speakers don't speak in the same way.
That is such an interesting point and a really important point that fluency doesn't mean sounding like a native speaker. It's not necessarily connected to accent, is it, Gav?
That is true. What does fluency mean?
Speaking clearly, quickly, and with ease.
So that's nothing to do with your accent. That's nothing to do with portraying a person from a specific country.
No, which is something that I don't know if our students really comprehend. They just think perfect English means sounding like somebody from the television who reads the news, maybe.
But as you say, it's not that. It's simply being able to speak clearly, confidently, and hopefully the other person understanding you perfectly. And I know exactly what Bianca means when she says about these adverts, because you see them everywhere on social media. I will teach you how to sound like a native. I will teach you in 3 months to speak like a native. These are all quite problematic claims, Em.
Yeah, because it's selling something which isn't necessary, or it's not even... It's making it desirable to sound a certain way, which doesn't mean your English is better than somebody else's, but they're trying to make it like if you sound like this, you will speak better than somebody with an accent or someone who is non-British or non-American, for example.
And what did you mean by this? Again, what does it mean to sound like a native?
Well, this is the problem. It's an actual erroneous claim in the first place, isn't it? It's misleading. It's really misleading to say this is what a native sounds like. As Bianca says, there are more than 40 countries with English as an official language. Those are all native speakers.
And Em, if you have a look at that list on Wikipedia, where English is the de jure official legal language in that country, and there are so many of them, there isn't one native accent.
Also, English is used as a lingua franca around all over the world. And what is a lingua franca? Well, a lingua franca is a language that allows communication between people from different parts of the world with different mother tongues. For example, I am Brazilian, my mother tongue is Portuguese, but if I want to speak with a German guy, and this German guy doesn't speak Portuguese and I don't speak German, we both have to find a language that we can use to communicate. And we'll probably speak English. So English in this case will be a lingua franca, is the language that both of us can use to communicate. But of course, when I speak English, I will have some Portuguese characteristics. And if a German guy speaks English, he'll have some German characteristics in the way he speaks. That's because when we speak more than one language, we will always bring some characteristics from our mother tongue. Because different languages have different sounds. Even though we have the same alphabet, letters may have different sounds in different languages. So they have a different phonological system. And that's okay. We will have different sounds that will imply in our accent. Also, the rhythm that we speak, the melody, or all the intonation, everything will imply in an accent.
Excellent point about characteristics. And these characteristics make these speakers unique and sound lovely. I love these different little rhythms or sounds. And it's only an issue if it interferes with understanding. I think that's the other thing that my students mix up. They think, oh, if I sound like I come from this country, that means nobody will understand me. And that's not true. There are certain maybe words or false friends or sounds within the pronunciation that could be impeding somebody's understanding. But I think that students shouldn't confuse removing those sounds with completely erasing their accent.
Really good points. I think you should take your culture with you. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. I want to encourage my students to have a sense of pride when they speak English. And if that means taking the characteristics of their own language, it's wonderful.
Yeah, I feel quite sad when my students say they want to completely get rid of their accent. And I definitely encourage them to keep it. I think it's what makes them them, really. Why would you want to sound the same as everybody else? Kind of neutral. I think a lot of my students just want to sound neutral, which I think is a shame.
This is a tricky point now, Em, that we've come to in the show, because as English teachers, we need to help the student reduce some of those hindering or distracting sounds from their speech. But where do you draw the line, Em?
It's hard. It's very hard. I had a student who was fluent. He was C1, C2, completely comprehensible, very clear, very fluent, and he had an accent. And he said he wanted to sound like an American. So then I did structure the course to help him do that, to play a lot of American recordings and focus on the sound of the words in an American speaker. And obviously America's a big place, so I had to say, well, what kind of American do you want to sound like? But then we did look at the difference between the sounds he was making and how to make them sound more of an American accent. And it was a weird experience, to be honest, but that was what he wanted.
Maybe the student had in mind that by reducing his foreign accent and shaping his voice to sound more like an American, that he felt he could integrate better into that society.
Yeah, well, that says more about society than it does about language, doesn't it? That's the sad thing, that he didn't want to stand out maybe, or he had a lot of American colleagues and he didn't want to sound different or foreign. And that's what we need to deal with, I think, in our society.
That's a bigger topic than 2 English teachers could deal with right now.
Yes, it is. So I think we need to keep on track with this. But yeah, it does open up a whole load of bigger questions, doesn't it?
Yep. So there are plenty of exercises students can try, like minimal pairs, which is where you identify sounds that are the same. Students have seen the word written down and based on their own language might think, this letter is pronounced this way, but actually in English it could be pronounced in a different way. So activities and games like minimal pairs, I think there are some other pronunciation games that are available. All of these are really useful.
That is a good example, because sometimes if a student says sheep but they mean ship, because of that sound in their own language, that is going to cause confusion. I think those are valid points, but you don't have to completely eradicate any influence of your own language, because why do you need to? It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But we are not used to listen to different accents. We usually listen to the same ones in English courses or even in media. When we watch some TV shows, movies, series in general, they usually use RP, received pronunciation, to represent British accents, and they use GA, General American, to represent American accents. And every time they try to bring a different one, they are pretty fake. But we cannot say that media is the problem and that media is making people believe that these are the only 2 accents in the world. In fact, I think language teachers should be responsible to show students that English is much more than what we see on TV. It's much more than RP and GA. And it's a big problem when teachers promise they will teach students to sound like a native speaker, and the only native speaker they show is a white American man with a general American accent without considering variations. So this is not the real representation of a native speaker.
Bianca is making some really important points here. Okay, we've got 3 things that she mentioned here. The first one was that when we use the materials that come with our course books, they are typically of the same people with the same sound. So as Bianca said, there were RP for British, this received pronunciation, or GA for American speakers, and it's just a specific part of America. It's not the whole country.
And if they have another accent, it's usually fake, which I agree it is. You can hear that it's fake, and I don't know why they do that. Why don't they just get someone with an accent to be that person?
It is very strange.
Well, I know why they do it. It's because they're only paying a certain amount of actors to do the recording, so they're like, okay, you just pretend to be from that country. It's kind of painful.
Which takes us into the second point Bianca made, which is the people we see in the media, on TV, in film, typically have the same accents. The same RP if they're from the UK, or the GA if they're from America.
I think the media has got a responsibility to change that. I think they need to work on it, because it is often the outsider or the baddie, or they're just not part of the group a lot of the time, the main group, that they've got these regional accents or an accent from a foreign country. And what are they trying to tell us with this? It's just weird. So definitely that is mirrored in these English books we use. And I think they're getting better. I do think they're trying, but they need more.
I agree. This is something that hopefully they're working towards. And that third point is that we're not considering all the variations of people who speak the English language. That's what our responsibility is, Em. We need to introduce our students to the varieties of English from all over the world.
So I believe in 3 things. First, I don't think it's really possible to speak 100% like a native, because, as I said, when we speak more than one language, it's difficult to get rid of all the characteristics of our mother tongue. you will have something in the way you speak that will be the same as you do when you speak your mother tongue. Also, second thing, I don't really think it's necessary to speak like a native speaker because we are more likely to encounter people who use English as a lingua franca than people who use English as their first language. Because there are more people who use English as a lingua franca in the world. There are more non-native speakers of English in the world than native speakers. So all we have to do is to make sure that people understand us and make sure that we understand more than one accent. So get in touch with different accents. This is really important. And the third thing is that even though you speak like a native speaker, even though you can do that, you will be speaking just like one native speaker. What about all the other ones? There are many others and they speak in different ways. So how can teachers do that? Language teachers do that? Well, I think it's important to include other countries in our classes other than US or UK. More than that, we have to use other flags, other cities in the examples, other cultural aspects, other festivities, not only United States or England or these countries in general. We have to search for people speaking with different accents, like videos and recordings, when we try to teach listening skills to our students. We have to show different accents. They have to practice with different accents so they'll be able to communicate with other people, not only Americans or British. And why should we do that? Well, I think it's pretty clear that when students listen to different accents, they will understand that their own accent is not a mistake. So they will relax. They will not try to sound like a native speaker because they understand that there is no one native speaker and people around the world speak in different ways. So my accent is just another one. It's not right, it's not wrong, it's just another one. Second, because students will improve their listening skills, of course, because they will get in touch with different accents and they will understand these accents, so they'll be able to communicate to the whole world. And third, I think this helps to break linguistic prejudice, because when we understand no accent is better than other, we will not judge other accents. We will not laugh, make jokes, or try to correct other people. And we will not allow that other people do that to us. We will not allow that other people laugh at us or make jokes or try to correct us, because we understand that our accent is just another one. So this is pretty much what I'm trying to do on internet. This is what I do on my Instagram, Unpuzzled English. I bring one different accent every week so people can get used to different accents, listen to them, understand better. And also on Spotify, I have some playlists, Unpuzzled English playlists with different accents from different continents. So singers from different continents sing with their own accent, so you can practice listening to different accents, also listening to music, which is, I think, is something people really like. So if you have any other questions, you can find me on Instagram, send me a message, feel free to do that. I'll be really glad to be talking to you, and I hope to see you soon. Thanks again.
That was a really good summary, and I agree about finding these other recordings, looking for them. It is hard sometimes to find, but another way, maybe if you've got a book and there's a recording in the book that you don't like, that it's just RP or GA, or it's somebody pretending to do an accent, then get your friends or your family or your colleagues, even students from other classes, just get them to read the audio script at the back of the book. You've got it there, so just record it on your phone and play that one instead, I would say, is a good tip.
As Bianca said, there are no wrong, bad, incorrect accents. There are just different accents. And we need to surround ourselves with these. We need to encourage our students to feel confident about their own accents.
Exactly. If we normalise it, we won't even think about it anymore. It will just be how it is. And that's what we need to aim for. And a really good point about the listening. Listening will improve because you can't go out into the world and think everybody will sound the same. They don't. So you need to listen to all these different people from all these different places to be able to have a better comprehension of English speakers.
That's true. So thanks so much to Bianca from Unpuzzled English. As I said, check her out on Instagram and also on Facebook. And she has a Spotify playlist, as she mentioned in the recording, which helps you tune your ears to the wonderful accents there are in the world.
Brilliant resource there. So this brings us to our featured teacher, Gav.
Is this the part of the show where we say, teacher, come on.
Can you do it on your own? No? Okay.
Teacher, teach me.
Yes, it's the Teacher Teach Me featured teacher.
And this week we've got Andy. How would you describe Andy's Instagram page? Describe what our followers can get from Andy's Instagram page, which is called Parlour Language Room.
It's a page full of fun. It's got videos, pictures, how-tos, listening practice, phrases, phrasal verbs, phrase of the day. It's just jam-packed with educational and fun content. And Andy says it's practical help for that rusty level of yours. So whatever level you are, there is something for you.
That's it. And you can also check out Andy's live shows where he comes straight from the beautiful city of Seville, which is in Spain. And you can follow Andy's exploits through the city as he teaches and guides you through the beautiful city.
Yes, it's very visual. So it is very colourful. It's lots to look at. How he describes it, it's study, lexicon and giggles.
Wow. Right. We've got Andy now from Parlour Language Room who will do the final part of the show. And this week's language is all about phrasal verbs. Take it away, Andy. And then see you next time.
See ya.
Who loves phrasal verbs? No one? Yeah, they're a real pain in the ass, but we have to learn them. I've never said contact in my life. I'll say get back to you. I'll say call you up. We'll use a phrasal verb. So, tips. How to study them, how to learn them. 1. Study the ones you need. I read one source and they said there were 10,000 phrasal verbs. I counted about 3,200 and then I gave up. So we're talking thousands. Obviously, some you need, some you don't need. An example. Belt out. Belt, what does this mean? Belt, cinturón, a belt for my trousers, to belt out. This actually means to sing loudly. So from the context, you probably won't understand belt out. Adele belted out her song. What doesn't help. So do you need this phrasal verb? Probably not. But if you sing in a choir, it's probably a phrasal verb you hear every day. So belt out is the phrasal verb for you. Second tip, don't study them by verb. Don't write a list of get. I'm going to learn all the phrasal verbs with get. Get in, get on, get away, get up. No, that will cause your brain to implode. You could try to learn them or memorize them with a particle, with a preposition. That's one idea. For example, up. With phrasal verbs, normally up means to the extreme or to the highest degree. So I will say, fill up the car. Ah, you mess up the presentation. Shut up. So up normally, yeah, that could help us. Learning verbs with a preposition. 3, learn them by topic. Learn 5 phrasal verbs for meetings. Oh, good idea. So you set up a meeting, you call off a meeting, you bring forward a meeting. Learn them by topic.